I saw their names on the job applications and nearly dropped my coffee. Ethan and Kelsey Bradshaw, my old stepbrother and stepsister. The same Ethan who used to joke that I'd never be pretty enough to date. The same Kelsey who once filled my backpack with tampons and told everyone I got my period in class. And now, they were both applying for entry-level positions at my company, the company I built from nothing, the company where I made the hiring decisions. Oh, this was going to be fun. Now, normally we don't do paired interviews, but when their schedules overlapped on the HR calendar, I approved it, personally. Just a little group intake format for efficiency. Sure. But before I get to the part where I made them squirm like the brats they used to be, let me rewind. Back when I was 13, my dad remarried Sharon, a woman who looked like a country club cocktail napkin in human form. Fragile, expensive, and full of things nobody asked for. Sharon came with 2 kids and enough perfume to fumigate the entire zip code. From the second they moved in, I was the odd one out. My clothes were weird, my laugh was annoying, and I was just that sad little girl with no mom. Yeah, Sharon made sure I felt it. And her kids? They turned it into sport. Ethan, the golden boy, called me charity case in front of his friends. Kelsey, queen bee in training, once told me, "Don't even try to sit with us. You're not even step real. You're more like a foster glitch." I hated them, but I kept quiet, kept my grades up, stayed out of the house when I could, and when I turned 18, I left. I didn't look back once. Fast forward 17 years later. I'm 35, single, and running a tech company that just landed a 7-figure government contract. I'd worked my way up from receptionist to manager, gaining an education at nights along the way. Then I left to become a founder entrepreneur myself, bootstrapped every damn step. And now I was hiring. I hesitated. Could it just be a big coincidence? It wasn't until I opened Ethan's resume and saw the high school, Silver Lake Academy, that I was sure. What should I do? Bin the applications? I was curious. A mischievous idea hit me. I could have some fun with this, some payback for those tortuous years, even if I was being rather petty and childish. I considered it, but it was Kelsey's cover letter that sealed my decision. I've always been passionate about project coordination and team morale. Team morale? From a girl who once told me I should lose weight if I wanted friends, and the best part, they might not even recognize me. They probably wouldn't. Not after all these years. Not with the name change. I dropped Harper the second I got my college diploma. Went back to my mother's name, Morgan. No braces now. No discount bangs or anxiety-ridden posture. Just a polished woman running a company they were desperate to get into. So I did what any calculating, emotionally well-adjusted grown woman would do. I invited them both to the same interview block, and showed up wearing my sharpest white blazer, Louboutin heels, and a calm, polite smile. They looked up, blinking, polite, clueless. It was perfect, priceless. "Good morning," I said, setting their resumes on the table. Ethan gave me a polite nod. Kelsey's smile was tight but professional. Neither of them flinched. They didn't recognize me, at all. To be fair, the girl they used to bully had braces, acne, and a wardrobe consisting of whatever Goodwill had in stock. This version of me, polished, confident, unbothered. Apparently a flat iron, 2 degrees, and a successful company does wonders for facial recognition. "So," I began, "what made you apply to Morgan Systems?" Ethan leaned forward first. "Honestly, I've followed the company for a while. I think the culture here aligns with my values: collaboration, hustle, integrity." Integrity. From the guy who used to cheat off my algebra homework, then tell people I was too ugly to copy from. Kelsey chimed in, flipping her hair. "And I'm big on leadership development. I love mentoring. I actually ran team-building events at my last job." Mentoring. Sure. Like that time she tricked me into a makeover, then posted my picture online with the caption, "Before puberty failed." I smiled and nodded, jotting fake notes while my pulse throbbed behind my ears. They still didn't know, and I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. I'd waited almost 2 decades for this moment. I wasn't going to waste it on petty theatrics. No, I had a plan. Step 1, hire them. Step 2, watch. I could have rejected them outright, but that would have been too clean, too quick. See, they wanted jobs, they wanted validation, approval, power. What they didn't know was I held all of it. Every inch of their futures in this company, in my hands. I extended offers the next morning. Kelsey squealed on the phone. Ethan said, "Wow, this is such a great opportunity." It was, just not for them. Week 1, I gave Ethan and Kelsey just enough space to hang themselves. They were placed in different departments, Ethan in product development, Kelsey in operations. I made sure both of them had just enough access, visibility, and pressure to show me who they really were. Ethan was all charm, no skill. He showed up late twice his first week. During meetings, he parroted ideas other people had already said, just louder and with more confidence. He wore that smug frat boy confidence like it was still 2006, the kind that crumbles the moment you ask a follow-up question. Kelsey was worse. She was a mean girl in a pastel blazer. At first, she tried to brown-nose everyone, bringing in cookies, laughing too hard at bad jokes, pretending to be one of the girls. By day 4, she was already gossiping to junior staff about dead weight on the team. I had HR flag her, but here's the thing. They still didn't know who I was. They referred to me as Miss Morgan, or the founder. I was this untouchable figure above their pay grade. One afternoon, I passed Kelsey in the break room, and she whispered to another girl, "Ugh, I bet she's the kind of boss who has a vibrator named after her company." That girl didn't laugh, and neither did I. I didn't confront her. I just filed it away, like evidence. Because this wasn't about blowing up. This was about slow-baking revenge at 375 degrees until golden brown and perfect. At the weekly team huddle, I pretended not to notice Ethan sweating through his button-down. I asked a simple question about the client onboarding process he was supposed to learn. He blinked. I think it's handled mostly by accounting." Wrong answer. It was his job now. The silence in the room was brutal. I nodded. "Interesting. Let's circle back on that next week with a detailed breakdown. Sound good?" He nodded like a bobblehead. Later that day, he emailed me a long paragraph blaming misaligned onboarding expectations. I didn't respond. Instead, I called my assistant and said, "Make sure Ethan's project leads get copied on every deliverable moving forward, and schedule a development review for next Thursday. Because you can't fire someone for being a jerk, but you can fire them for being incompetent." I was in the middle of reviewing a quarterly report when our HR manager, Priya, stepped into my office, lips twitching like she was fighting back a laugh. "You have a minute?" I nodded. "What's up?" She held up a printed email. "You're not going to believe this." It was a formal HR complaint from Kelsey about me. The subject line? Toxic executive behavior, Miss Morgan's Ice Queen attitude. I nearly choked on my LaCroix. The complaint said I created an emotionally distant work environment, and that I stared too intensely during a team meeting. She accused me of microaggressions of tone. Tone. This, coming from a woman who used to rate girls' outfits in high school with a glitter pen and a fake British accent. I handed the email back to Priya. "She doesn't know who I am," Priya blinked. "Wait, she's one of the ones you told me about?" "Stepbrother and stepsister, yep." Priya covered her mouth. "Oh my God, do we tell them?" "Nope," I said. "Not yet. Let her keep digging." Kelsey had no idea how corporate HR actually works. You don't get people fired with melodramatic nonsense. You get them documented. So I instructed Priya to reply like clockwork. "Thank you for your concern, Kelsey. Your feedback has been noted and documented. Let us know if you experience any direct misconduct. Translation: You're on our radar. Good luck." After that, I saw Kelsey start to unravel. Just a little. She smiled harder. Her voice got louder. She emailed me at 11:42 p.m. one night with an article about motivating teams with feminine energy. By Monday, she asked if we could grab lunch to discuss mentorship. I told her my schedule was full. And then I CC'd Priya. Let her sweat. Because here's the fun part about corporate revenge. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to raise your standards. And make sure the same people who once laughed at you are now working under a microscope you installed yourself. It started with an email. Well, technically, it started with Ethan trying to pass someone else's work off as his own. But the email made it official. One of our senior engineers, Priya's husband, forwarded me a message with the subject, "Hey, is this guy serious?" Attached were 2 documents. One, a polished systems outline submitted by Ethan that morning for a product pitch. The other, a transcript where our junior engineer, Will, walked him through that exact outline the day before, down to the formatting and phrasing, word for word. Ethan didn't tweak a single sentence, not even the font, just copy-paste email. So I called a meeting, not with Ethan, with Will. He was surprised, obviously, kept glancing around like he'd done something wrong. I just wanted to clarify, I said, sliding the 2 documents toward him. This is your work, right? His eyes widened. Yeah, I sent it to Ethan because he asked for input on the structure. I didn't think— Wait, did he submit this? I nodded. Will turned pink. I didn't want to throw him under the bus. I leaned in slightly. You're not. You're holding someone accountable, and trust me, I know exactly what that feels like. That same afternoon, I called Ethan into a private conference room. He swaggered in like we were going to talk bonus structure or mentorship. He even winked. I didn't say much. I just pushed the 2 documents across the table and asked one question. Which part of this did you write? He looked from the first to the second. His Adam's apple bobbed. I contributed to the framework. Which part? Silence. Then I slid over a printed copy of the transcript. Ethan's mouth snapped shut like a trap door. He tried the usual moves, downplaying, joking, shifting blame. I didn't realize it was going to be that formal. It was a client-facing doc, Ethan. You presented it as your own. Okay, well, maybe I should have credited Will better, but it's not like You plagiarized work and took credit. That's called misrepresentation. In this company, it's also called grounds for a performance review. He stopped talking. I let the silence hang. HR will be following up, I said, standing. In the meantime, your next project will be under direct oversight. No more autonomous tasks. He stood there blinking, and then he said it. Why are you doing this to me? I didn't answer, because I wasn't doing anything. He was just getting exactly what he earned. It was the Friday team meeting. Casual dress, open coffee bar, light banter, until Kelsey opened her mouth. She'd been trying hard all week. Too hard. Posting thought leadership articles on Slack, our messaging system. Smiling too much. Even laughing at Ethan's terrible jokes again like they were still in high school and she was queen bee of the table. And now, in front of 20 employees, she decided to share a few takeaways on leadership culture, without being asked. I sat quietly and watched her stand near the whiteboard in jeans, heels, and a power blouse, holding a color-coded slide deck like she was on Shark Tank. Sometimes leadership is about energy, she said, about knowing when to lean in and when to let go. She clicked to a slide titled, Women Who Lead with Warmth. Bullet point 1, Feminine leadership creates harmony. Bullet point 2, High-achieving women don't need to be cold. Bullet point 3, she didn't get to. Because someone's phone dinged, then someone snorted, then another whispered. Does she think she's pitching a TED Talk? It all unraveled fast. Kelsey froze. The room wasn't hostile. It was worse. Embarrassed for her. This wasn't middle school. This wasn't cheer captain tryouts. These were real professionals, real grown-ups, and she'd just pulled a power play in front of people she barely understood. I cleared my throat. Kelsey, thank you for your initiative. Next time, let's sync with your team lead before presenting internal strategy decks. Her face flushed. I thought it might be empowering. I nodded. It might have been if it were relevant to today's agenda or tied to any actual team data. Silence. Someone coughed. Kelsey sat down. She didn't make eye contact with anyone. After the meeting, she went straight to the bathroom. She didn't come back for 20 minutes. Later that day, I heard from her supervisor that she'd requested clarification on company culture expectations. I offered to meet, but when she saw it was going to be me in the room, she declined, because somewhere, somehow, she was starting to suspect who I really was. It happened during a performance review. Ethan sat across from me in my office, one leg bouncing like he was waiting for the SAT results and a slap in the face. Probably both. He was nervous. Good. HR had already issued a formal warning after the plagiarism incident. His manager reported low initiative and team resistance. And now I was here to deliver the news. No promotion, no bonus, just consequences. I'm not saying you can't improve, I told him, calm and measured, but trust has to be rebuilt. He nodded too quickly, like a bobblehead with a loose spring. Then he tilted his head. Hey, have we met before? I raised an eyebrow. He squinted, studying my face like a magic eye puzzle. You look really familiar. Here it comes. I used to know this girl, he said, snapping his fingers. From back home, stepsister. What was her name? Jessie something. My silence made him blink. You're not Jessie Harper, are you? I gave him a polite smile. My name is Jessica Morgan. He hesitated. Right. But your real name, back then, was... I cut in. The name I choose is the one I built this company with. The one on every contract, every deal, every success. So no, Ethan, I'm not that girl from back then. She grew up. She moved on. She became me. Silence. Ethan looked as if he'd just seen someone swallowed whole by a shark in one single gulp. But why didn't you say anything? I shrugged. You never asked. He opened his mouth again, maybe to apologize, maybe to grovel, but I raised a hand. This meeting's over. Your next review is in 3 months, if you're still here by then. He left without another word. His face said it all. He could tell he was a dead man walking. I watched him go and thought, recognition isn't redemption, especially when it only comes after the fall. Unlike Ethan, Kelsey didn't ask questions. She made assumptions. She made moves, and then she made a mistake she couldn't walk back. It started with a message to our director of HR, Priya. Subject: concern about leadership dynamics, confidential. In it, Kelsey implied that I was creating division in the company, that my personal bias was affecting her psychological safety. She even threw in some buzzwords like hostile silence, gendered gatekeeping, and, my favorite, implied retaliation. She was trying to preemptively file a case, to get ahead of what she clearly felt was coming. Unfortunately for her, she didn't know I already had a documented record of every unprofessional moment she'd displayed in the office, plus complaints from no fewer than 3 coworkers, including the intern she yelled at for ruining the snack drawer hierarchy. Still, I played it smart. I invited her to a formal review with HR. She walked in smug, clipboard in hand, dressed like she was auditioning to be COO of a motivational MLM. When she saw both me and Priya waiting inside, her eyes narrowed. "Am I being terminated?" she asked. "No," I said. "You're being given a chance." Her lips twitched. "To what? Defend myself?" "No, to reflect, and to finally face a mirror." I pulled out the HR file, documented, time-stamped, bullet-pointed. I listed the gossip, the unprofessional behavior, the complaints. I slid her own Slack messages across the table. And then I said, "You spent years tearing people down to feel powerful, Kelsey, but power isn't something you steal from others. It's something you build from the ground up." I know, I did it. Her face changed. Slowly, recognition washed over her like a slap. She didn't say it out loud, but I saw it. The memory of me. Backpack stuffed with trash. A locker that smelled like sour milk. Those pranks that left me crying in the nurse's office while she and Ethan laughed in the hallway. "You're Jessie," she whispered. She seemed to slump, to wilt as if all the energy, the bravado, had just completely drained out of her, leaving an empty shell. I nodded. "Jessica Morgan, CEO, and the same girl you used to humiliate just for existing." Kelsey's throat bobbed. "I didn't mean—" "You did," I cut in, "and now you get to experience something new. Accountability." I let her sit in silence, watching her shift uncomfortably in her chair. Then she said, "I was just a silly girl back then. I've changed a heck of a lot since those days." I laughed out loud. "I gave you a chance because I was curious, but I haven't seen anything in you that reflects any growth or maturity since then. You still bully, gossip, belittle, lie, undermine, and refuse to take any responsibility for your poor performances." Again she was silent, this time shaken and breathing heavily. She couldn't meet my eyes. Then I said, "You're not being fired, at least not yet. But your probation starts today. You'll report directly to your team lead. You'll have weekly reviews. And any further complaints? That'll be your last day." She nodded, stiff and pale, tears in the corner of her eyes. On her way out, she didn't look back, because she knew what was coming next. The cracks turned into canyons within 2 weeks. Kelsey broke first. She came in late 3 times, flubbed a client call, and snapped at her team lead in a meeting. Then came the final straw. She accidentally forwarded a snarky email about her supervisor to her supervisor. The subject line? "When does this glorified babysitter get fired?" Nice touch. She was gone the next day. Didn't even wait for the formal exit interview. Just sent an all-staff email that said, "Sometimes strong women get punished for telling the truth. Good luck surviving the corporate cult." She didn't pack her desk. Security did. Word spread like wildfire. Kelsey Bradshaw, fired from Morgan Systems after just 6 weeks. The same girl who once told me I'd be working the drive-thru by 30. Now she was gone. And her LinkedIn went quiet. I heard later she tried to start a podcast about toxic workplaces, but it had 3 episodes and 1 review, from her mom. Ethan held on, barely. He got quieter after that day in my office, started dressing sharper, nodded more, tried in his awkward way to play catch-up with the rest of the team, but he couldn't hide the panic. One Thursday afternoon, I overheard him in the stairwell whispering on the phone, "I don't know what happened. It's like she knows everything I'm going to screw up before I do." He wasn't wrong. By then, I'd personally approved every project assignment that kept him just close enough to succeed, but just uncomfortable enough to sweat. He turned in an incomplete draft for a mid-level client proposal the following Monday. 3 strikes. HR called him in, and this time he asked for a meeting with me. He stood in front of my desk like he was back in algebra class, hoping the teacher would cut him a break. "Look," he started, "I know you don't owe me anything, and I'm not trying to defend the stuff we did as kids. We were jerks. I was a jerk. I know that." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" He took a breath. "And I just want to say I'm sorry. Very sorry for all the things we did back then." I watched him for a moment. He looked like he meant it. Or like he knew I held every card now. Maybe both. "I'm not the one you need to say it to," I said quietly. "I'm just the one who remembers." Then I said, "If I never knew you, I would have fired you already for what you've done so far. Now tell me one thing from our childhood. Just a single act of kindness, or one nice thing you said to me in the entire 5 years we lived together, that would help to tilt the scales in your favor." He stared at me for a few seconds, considering, recalling, his face full of regret, pain, and sadness. Then he nodded, turned, and left my office without saying another word. And then he resigned. No fuss, no public meltdown, just a quiet little message to HR and a cardboard box with his name scribbled in Sharpie. I didn't throw a party. I just stayed late that night, cleaned out my inbox, and cracked open a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a moment like this. Because the best revenge is being the person they never imagined you'd become, and letting them choke on the silence of their own regret. A month after they were both gone, I got a Facebook friend request from someone I hadn't thought about in years. Sharon, the stepmom, queen of the passive-aggressive dinner table and weaponized affection. The request sat there, unread, unanswered. I didn't need to click accept to know what she wanted. Probably some explanation, maybe even an apology for humiliating her kids or holding on to the past. But here's the truth. I wasn't holding on to the past. I was just done letting it hold on to me. I built something with my name on it, my real name, not the one I had when they mocked me or when Sharon pretended I didn't exist during family photos. And now, that company was expanding. I'd just secured a new office in Chicago. A mentorship grant for women in tech was in the works. And every Friday I hosted a lunch and learn for junior hires, where I was the one giving out advice. The last session I hosted, titled, "What Bullies Taught Me About Power." No names, no revenge tour, just truth. After the session, a new intern came up to me and said, "That story you told about being underestimated, that hit hard. My brother says I should quit, that I'm not smart enough for tech." I smiled and handed her a notebook. "You're smart enough. You're just not quiet enough to make him comfortable." She grinned like I had just given her a weapon. I guess I had. Because that's what I learned after all these years. Revenge doesn't always look like fire and fury. Sometimes it looks like success, silence, and showing up anyway. Sometimes it looks like watching your bullies shrink in the shadow of the person you became despite them, and sometimes it just looks like walking through the office you built, sipping your overpriced oat milk latte, and knowing you won. If you've ever been the underdog, the outsider, the one they counted out, hit like and subscribe for more stories where justice gets served hot and messy. Because around here we believe in karma, comebacks, and watching bullies eat humble pie. Also, let me know in the comments. Was I too harsh and unforgiving, or did the siblings deserve everything they got? Was I a hero, or did I go too far and become a bully myself? Thanks for watching.